They told you to seek power, to dominate, to lead, to win. They said, take control, be dominant, don't let anyone disrespect you. But they never asked, control over what? Lead who? Win what exactly? Look again. You'll see men turning every conversation into a competition, every relationship into a battlefield, every woman into a trophy, every opinion into a threat, every emotion into a weakness. They don't call it fear, they call it strength. But Nietzsche didn't see strength in that. He saw insecurity dressed as ideology, trauma baptized as masculinity. He who cannot obey himself is commanded. This sentence isn't advice, it's a mirror. And most men, when they look into it, turn away. Because obeying yourself is terrifying. It means taking orders from the part of you that's still unfinished, still conflicted, still chaotic. It means having no one left to blame, no crowd left to please, no enemy to point at when things fall apart. It means meeting the beast inside, and not killing it, not chaining it, but listening, and learning to lead it. Most men would rather command the world than face that silence within themselves. There's a kind of man who shouts to feel powerful, who dominates others so he doesn't have to confront his own helplessness, who seduces because he cannot sit with himself, who conquers because being still would force him to see just how empty his throne really is. Nietzsche called this the last man, the one who survives instead of transforms, the one who seeks comfort, status, pleasure, but avoids meaning. He wears confidence like a costume, but behind the costume is a boy, still begging for validation, still trying to earn his father's voice, his mother's love, his own permission to exist. And the mask of power is heavy. That's why he must always prove himself, why he can't rest, why he needs someone to be beneath him, why peace feels like death. Because without noise, he hears the truth. He is not the master. He is the slave to impulse, to fear, to image. But Nietzsche wasn't building a theory. He was sounding an alarm. He was saying, look within, or you'll be ruled from without. Not by governments, not by women, not by enemies, but by your own unexamined instinct to perform. That's not power. That's a cage. A golden cage, maybe, but still a cage. So Nietzsche asks, are you strong enough to not need to look strong? Are you powerful enough to walk away from the performance? Are you brave enough to stop playing the role of the dominator and instead confront the truth of your own becoming? Because domination is not power, and submission is not weakness. The real battlefield is within, and most men never enter it. Most men chasing power are just trying not to feel weak. He calls himself a leader, but he cannot sit in silence. He calls himself dominant, but he cannot endure being ignored. He speaks of power, but is enslaved by the need to be seen. There is a slave inside the master, and Nietzsche saw him clearly. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. Most men fighting for control have already lost the war, because they don't even know who they're fighting. Not women, not society, not weakness. They're fighting their own reflection. The truth is, many who seek power are not seeking strength. They are running from shame. They don't rise because they've earned it. They rise to avoid collapsing. Watch closely. The man who preaches dominance cannot handle rejection. The one who lectures about stoicism is terrified of vulnerability. The one who demands submission fears intimacy. Because intimacy requires surrender, not of control, but of image. And most of them have only that, image. An identity built on scarcity, a self built on performance, a voice built on noise. Nietzsche saw this in the will to power, not the will to dominate others, but the will to overcome the self. A quiet revolution inside the soul. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not a goal. But many men don't want to be bridges. They want to be statues, fixed, celebrated, worshipped. They want to be gods, but refuse to bleed, refuse to doubt, refuse to kneel before anything real. So they become hollow kings, ruling kingdoms of noise, with no mirror, no silence, no center. They wear the mask of dominance to cover the wound of insignificance. But Nietzsche knew, the stronger the mask, the deeper the wound. Because the true master isn't the one who commands others, it's the one who no longer needs to. The one who can bear rejection without collapsing. The one who can choose silence over control. The one who can hold his own chaos without needing someone else to clean it up. That is not what most men want. It is what they fear. Because to become that kind of man, you have to destroy what you've been told a man is. You have to walk into the fire not to conquer it, but to be transformed by it. That's not red pill. That's not alpha. That's not even Nietzsche. That's just evolution. And most won't make it. Power that needs to be proven is not power. There is no power in imitation, no freedom in revenge, no transformation in mimicry. You do not become powerful by copying the powerful. You become powerful by burning who you were supposed to be. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. But who dares to face their own chaos? Who dares to look in the mirror and not see a label, but a question? Most men want shortcuts. They want maps, formulas, systems. They want the shell of power without the pain that creates it. Tell me what to say. Tell me how to walk. Tell me how to win. But Nietzsche didn't offer instructions. He offered confrontation, a mirror, not a manual. Because there is no technique for becoming yourself. There is only fire. And fire doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't wait. It destroys. It cleanses. It reduces everything false to ash. The weak run from it. The wounded try to weaponize it. But the one who endures it is reborn. Not as a version of someone else. Not as someone following a strategy. But as something raw, untamed, true. Not a man who learned power, but a man who survived himself. Nietzsche didn't write for the masses. He wrote for the one ready to die in the desert just to find his own voice. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But most don't have a why. They follow scripts, play roles, live cliches. They want love, but don't want to love themselves. They want respect, but haven't earned their own. They want to be followed, but can't follow their inner command. They think power is being louder, firmer, colder. But true power is quiet. It doesn't seek approval because it's not for sale. The Übermensch was not a tyrant. He was not a puppet master. He was not a man at war with the world. He was a man who stopped being at war with himself. A creator, a dancer, a flame. Not feared for his dominance, but remembered for his presence. Because he no longer needed to prove, to control, to be right, to be anything but real. You don't get there by performing masculinity. You get there by burning the performance itself. You don't become fire by pretending to burn. You become fire by going into your darkness until there's nothing left to fear. And from that emptiness, not hate, not shame, but a deeper pulse, the will to live, raw, sacred, self-owned. That is power. And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. There is a kind of power that doesn't arrive with noise, but with absence. No titles, no threats, no followers. Just a man who commands by not needing to. In a world addicted to dominance, we confuse control with strength. We confuse noise with presence. We confuse the loudest voice with the deepest truth. But Nietzsche's Übermensch was not loud. He wasn't shouting commands. He was not obsessed with winning debates or proving superiority in the marketplace of egos. He had walked through hell and come back uninterested. The real authority is not the one who conquers others. It's the one who no longer needs to. He who cannot obey himself is commanded. Most men are still obeying someone, a movement, a model, a myth of control. They bark orders at the world because they cannot stand the silence of their own soul. They fight to be alphas, but can't spend a night alone without distraction. They speak of dominating women, business, war, but panic when the screen goes black and the room is finally quiet. But the man who owns himself, he doesn't compete, he doesn't explain, he doesn't chase applause or manufacture charisma. He carries a weight, a gravity that others feel without understanding. When he walks into a room, people go quiet, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Something is different. Something can't be manipulated. It's not status, not style. It's something deeper, like still water over a vast depth. A silence that cannot be filled. A calm that cannot be shaken. This is not submission. It's not weakness. It's the highest form of power, when nothing can tempt you, because you've already tasted everything inside yourself. There is nothing left to dominate, because the only battle that mattered was won. Not by destruction, but by integration. No rage left to prove you're strong. No mask left to maintain the image of man. No obsession with being desired, because you no longer crave anything. Not numb, but whole. You've stopped performing. You've stopped seeking. You've stopped barking. And now, people listen. That is authority, not what you impose, but what emerges when you no longer need to impose anything at all. It's not about being above others in the hierarchy. It's about stepping outside of it. It's not about leading others. It's about being so rooted in yourself that others begin to remember who they are just by standing next to you. This is not charisma, it's truth. He doesn't have to win. He doesn't have to explain his silence. His stillness is not passive. It's deliberate. It's earned. Because he stared into the abyss, and when it stared back, he didn't flinch. In the quiet man, there's a fire that no longer needs to burn outward. He's become light, not flame, not to illuminate the world, but simply because he is no longer lost in the dark. Invisible threads are the strongest ties. You wanted power, not because you were strong, but because you were afraid. Afraid to be vulnerable, afraid to be invisible, afraid to be unloved by the world, so you built a mask and called it manhood. You feared being ruled, so you tried to become the ruler. But still, you obeyed. You spoke of strength, but only knew fear. You spoke of freedom, but could not face solitude. You spoke of dominance, but could not even dominate your own compulsions. You looked at Nietzsche and saw a beast, but you missed the man. You saw the whip, but not the stillness. You saw the war, but not the wound. The Übermensch was not an alpha. He was not a predator. He was not obsessed with hierarchy, status, or submission. He was a creator, a rebuilder, a man who destroyed the old values only to birth new ones from himself. What does your conscience say? You shall become the person you are. The tragedy of the modern man is that he mistook domination for awakening. He mistook conquest for evolution. He mistook Nietzsche's hammer for a weapon to beat others, when it was meant to shatter his own illusions. You want to be a god to avoid being human. But the real God is the man who descended into hell and came back not needing heaven anymore. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. But you have no why. Only tactics, only poses, only noise. You memorized strategies to seduce, but never learned how to stay. You learned to mimic dominance, but never developed discipline. You sought to manipulate the world, but never dared to understand yourself. You looked outward, always outward. But the abyss you feared was never in others. It was inside you. And now you run seminars on how to avoid it. You charge for shortcuts to avoid becoming whole. You wear your wounds like badges and call yourself awakened. And call yourself awakened. But awakening is not louder. It's quieter, more painful, more sacred. It requires the death of the actor, and you are still performing. Nietzsche never gave you permission to dominate others. He demanded that you confront yourself. He didn't call you to control the feminine. He called you to integrate the anima, to face the terrifying chaos within, to walk naked into the mirror and not look away. You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. You silenced the chaos. You killed the star. You became a machine, a mask of control, but no face underneath. And now you call it power? True power is not domination. It is transfiguration. It is to let go of the myths, the scripts, the fears that disguise themselves as strength. It is to die to the boy who needed to be feared, so the man can finally be free. The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind. You were never red-pilled. You were just hurt. And you mistook anger for vision. You mistook rebellion for rebirth. But this path leads only to repetition, a new tyranny, not of others, but of yourself. The final illusion was believing you needed power to feel whole. If this moved something inside you, stay. We're building something for those who don't fake it. Subscribe, not just for the content, but for the confrontation. And if this left a wound, maybe it was meant to. Sometimes the best way to go deeper is to share the pain. Share it. Real power doesn't need to speak. It doesn't beg to be seen. Maybe someone you know is still chasing shadows, still performing, still calling it strength. Let this reach him, or her, or the part of you that's still pretending. Because silence is not emptiness. It's the beginning of becoming.